Welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric and this is D&D Original Character. Today we're looking at how to play as Uchiha Itachi in D&D 5e. Itachi is a fan favorite from the series and one of my favorite characters as well. Itachi tells us himself that his specialties are Genjutsu, Fire Style, and Shuriken Jutsu. So those, along with his Mangekyo abilities, are what we'll focus on for this build. For this build, we're going to make Itachi a Warlock and take him from levels 1 to 17. Throughout this build, I'll cover why I think Warlock is one of the best options for an Itachi build. But one thing to point out from the beginning is Itachi's sickness, which ultimately leads to his untimely death. To translate this to Warlocks, because Warlocks only receive 2 packed slots for the majority of their careers, you can flavor this as Itachi's sickness, coughing up blood and requiring him to flee from the battlefield at strategic points throughout the series. For the specific subclass, I view Itachi as an Undead Warlock. At level 1, we gain the Form of Dread feature. Form of Dread tells us that, as a bonus action, we can transform for a minute and gain the following benefits. We gain temporary hit points equal to 1d10 plus our Warlock level. Once during each of our turns, when we hit a creature with an attack, we can force it to make a Wisdom saving throw. If it fails, the creature is frightened by us until the end of our next turn. Lastly, we are immune to the frightened condition. We can use this ability proficiency bonus times per day and regain uses after a long rest. This is one of the strongest Warlock features from any of these subclasses, especially at level 1. This allows us to bolster our defenses with the temporary hit points, as Itachi does wade into melee from time to time. It also just establishes our presence with our Form of Dread, basically serving as Itachi's Sharingan. Itachi is consistently shown as having an intimidating presence throughout the series, unsettling the likes of Deidara and Orochimaru and Kakashi. The Undead Warlock also plays into Itachi's character arc. Not only is Itachi brought back in the 4th Great Ninja War as an Edo Tensei, but he also dies to his former life as a member of the Uchiha clan and a member of the village hidden in the leaves, and takes on the role of an assassin and an Akatsuki member in order to save the village from the Uchiha coup. For Itachi's Shuriken mastery, I'm going to be leaning on a reflavoring of Eldritch Blast into Kunai. Eldritch Blast allows us to fire off a beam of energy 120 feet for 1d10 force damage. The number of beams increases as we level, following the standard cantrip progression, and can be greatly enhanced through Eldritch Invocations. Speaking of which, I won't go through all of the Eldritch Invocations and the choices for this build, but 2 which help us to continue building Itachi's Eyesight and Sharingan are the Devil's Sight and Eldritch Sight. Devil's Sight allows us to see in darkness, including magical darkness, up to 120 feet, while Eldritch Sight allows us to cast Detect Magic at will instead of using a spell slot, and we can even cast it faster than just using a standard ritual casting, only requiring an action to cast. This again speaks to Itachi's ocular prowess, as the Sharingan can track movements and see chakra. In this case, we are seeing through magical darkness and detecting magical items and loot. Next up is our Pact choice. I think you can either go with the Pact of the Chain or Pact of the Tome, but we'll take Pact of the Tome. Pact of the Tome, along with the Book of Ancient Secrets, Invocation, allows us some additional cantrips, plus basically any ritual spell, regardless of the class that we come across during our journey. We also get to choose 1 ritual spell of 1st level, and of course we want the Find Familiar spell. With Find Familiar, we can choose a spirit that takes the form of an animal, including a raven. Itachi technically uses a crow, but I think the raven, that fits perfectly well. This raven can be used to help us in battle by using the help action, but generally, a familiar is great for scouting. Next, let's take a look at some of our leveled spell selections. Of course, you can take the standard Warlock spells like Hex, but the first choice I want to go over is the 2nd level Mirror Image. This is a great defensive spell that does not require our concentration, it lasts for a minute, and during the duration we can create 3 illusory duplicates. When we're attacked, we roll a d20 to determine if the attack targets one of our duplicates instead. If we have 3 duplicates up, we need to roll a 6 or higher to change the target of the attack, an 8 or higher for 2 duplicates, and we have to roll an 11 or higher if we only have 1 duplicate active. Because Itachi has his water clone jutsu and his Genjutsu, mirror image can be used flavor-wise to speak to either ability and make sure attacks miss us completely. Next up are the 3rd level spells. Now, I must admit that I've made a horrible mistake in planning out this build. Everyone in the D&D community makes mistakes when building a character, and I'm certainly no different. For whatever reason, I just assumed that all warlocks have access to Fireball, when in reality only the Fiend Warlock and the Afridi version of the Genie Warlock have Fireball on their extended spell lists. Anyways, Fire Jutsu is just a pretty iconic for any Uchiha character, so hopefully your DM is lenient and they allow for Fireball on an Undead Warlock. If not, I think the Fiend Lock works fairly well for Itachi. You can have Obito serving as Itachi's fiendish patron, and then Madara serving as Obito's patron. I think it works. But you all know what Fireball does. It's a 3rd level spell, a massive 20-foot radius, 8d6 fire damage to anyone inside. It's a classic staple of D&D. And then leaning into the moniker Itachi of the Sharingan, we'll take Hypnotic Pattern as our 3rd level spell selection, giving us a powerful offensive Genjutsu option. Again, when I think of Itachi, his Sharingan and ocular abilities are the first thing that come to mind. Hypnotic Pattern, as I've argued in the past on my top 10 pound-for-pound spells in D&D list, is the strongest spell for its level. 120-foot range that requires concentration for up to a minute, we cast a 30-foot cube of twisting colors. Each creature in the area who sees the pattern must make a wisdom saving throw. If they fail, they are charmed, incapacitated, and their movement reduces to 0. In other words, it can completely remove enemies from a battle, just like Genjutsu can in Naruto. We do gain a couple of Undead Warlock features at 6th and 10th level. At 6th level, we have Grave Touched and Necrotic Husk at 10th. Grave Touched provides a ribbon feature in that we don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. I suppose this can be helpful like in a survival campaign or if we're submerged underwater, surrounded by gas, etc. Additionally, once on each of our turns, we can change the damage type of our Eldritch Blast from Force to Necrotic. If we have our form of Dread up, we can then roll 1 additional damage die in Necrotic damage. So, for example, at 6th level, we have 2 beams of Eldritch Blast. This would then bump that up from 2d10 in damage die to 3d10. And that's certainly not an insignificant bump in damage at this level. Necrotic Husk at 10th level also provides us with some decent abilities. We gain resistance to necrotic damage, and then immunity if we have our form of Dread active. Then, if we are reduced to 0 hit points, we can use our reaction to drop to 1 instead. Each creature of our choice within 30 feet takes 2d10 plus our Warlock level in necrotic damage, and then we gain 1 level of exhaustion, which again that kind of plays into Itachi's sickness quite well. The last spell I'll mention from our packed slots is Synaptic Static. I don't think Itachi has an ability combining his fire style and his Genjutsu, but if he did, Synaptic Static would be the perfect fit. Synaptic Static is a 5th level spell, which is where our pack slots cap out at. It's a 1-action, 120-foot range, 20-foot radius spell, which deals 86 damage. This is exactly the same as Fireball, except that Fireball deals 10d6 when you upcast it to 5th level. So why would we go with Synaptic Static? Well, there are 3 reasons why Synaptic Static is arguably twice as good as Fireball cast at the 5th level. For one, it targets the superior intelligence save over a dexterity save, making the attack easier to land. Secondly, the damage is psychic, which is much more reliable than fire. This is to say it's just less resisted than fire damage. Finally, the most obvious reason why Synaptic Static is better is that it has the additional debuff rider of subtracting 1d6 from all attack rolls, ability checks, and constitution saving throws from creatures affected by the spell. For those reasons, it just feels like a proper spell for both a Warlock and an Itachi build to have. And now we come to my favorite part of the build, focusing on Itachi's Mangekyo abilities. First, we have Tsukuyomi. This is Itachi's left eye ability, and it traps an opponent in a Genjutsu so powerful that while only a split second passes in the real world, Itachi can make it feel as if 72 hours have passed in this mental prison Itachi has created. Itachi controls all of the senses one experiences while in this realm, including the pain they feel. Kakashi being caught by Tsukuyomi is one of the most iconic and memorable moments in the entire series. Mental Prison is a 6th level spell available to warlocks with their Mystic Arcanum selection, and it is the perfect representation of Tsukuyomi. I'll read the spell description. You attempt to bind a creature with an illusory cell that only it perceives. Once the creature you see is within range, it must make an intelligence saving throw. The target succeeds automatically if it's immune to being charmed. On a successful save, the target takes 5d10 psychic damage, and the spell ends. But on a failed save, the target takes the 5d10 psychic damage, and you make the area immediately around the target's space appear dangerous to it in some way. You might cause the target to perceive itself as being surrounded by fire, floating razors, or hideous maws filled with dripping teeth. Whatever form the illusion takes, the target can't see or hear anything beyond it, and it is restrained for the spell's duration. If the target is moved out of the illusion, makes a melee attack through it, or reaches any part of its body through it, the target takes 10d6 psychic damage and the spell ends. Mental Prison is so thematic and on point for Itachi. So you can imagine the target being captured in this, and then as the Naruto series portrays, they're, on a cross being stabbed by swords continuously from Itachi. Additionally, the secondary 10d10 psychic damage is triggered when the enemy moves out of the illusion. The spell does not require the target to willingly move, and as a warlock with the Repelling Blast invocation, we can easily cause that target to move with forced movement. Next up is Itachi's right eye Mangekyo ability, Amaterasu. There is already a spell in 5th edition that perfectly captures the feeling of Amaterasu, and that is Immolation. Immolation spawns fire onto a target that you can see, and the flames continue to burn the target, much like Amaterasu. 2 issues with Immolation, though. The first is that this is not a spell available to warlocks. The second issue is that it's just not a very good spell. It's a 5th level spell that requires concentration and targets one creature. The creature only takes 7d6 fire damage on a failed dex save and then half on a success. If they fail, the target can continue making dex saves at the end of each of their turns, and then if they just continue to fail their dex saves, they're only hit with 3d6 fire damage. 7d6 and then 3d6 afterwards on only if the target continues to fail. It's just not good enough for a 5th level concentration spell. So instead, my suggestion would be a reflavoring of the 7th level spell, Crown of Stars. Again, this is available to warlocks as a Mystic Arcanum spell. It has a great duration of 1 hour without concentration. 7 star-like motes of light appear and orbit us until the spell ends. We can then use our bonus action and send one of the motes towards a creature, dealing 4d12 radiant damage on a hit. While not only is this thematically on point, it's not as thematic as Immolation. As a warlock, our bonus action is usually free, and Itachi does seem to spam Amaterasu multiple times when a target is moving, which Crown of Stars allows us to send these multiple times. So I think it does a decent job of conveying the power of Amaterasu. And lastly, after picking up spells to cover Itachi's Shuriken skill, Genjutsu prowess, Fire style, Jutsu, Mangekyo abilities, the only thing that's left is the Susanoo. As most of you know, the Susanoo is the paradigmatic example ability of the Mangekyo Sharingan, allowing the wielder to create a humanoid body of armor that covers their entire person and is made of pure chakra. With such a powerful ability, the only way to accurately reflect the devastating strength of a Susanoo in D&D is with a 9th level spell. This is where Shape Change comes into play. Shape Change is my favorite 9th level spell. This allows us to up to an hour with our concentration, assume the form of a different creature. The creature must have a challenge rating equal to our character level or below. So CR is 17 when we first gain the ability, up to CR 20 if we go straight Warlock. We retain our intelligence, wisdom, and charisma ability scores, but everything else is replaced by the creature. This means we gain their strength, constitution, dexterity, hit points, hit dice, armor class, proficiencies, and legendary resistances, but not their legendary actions. If we drop to 0 HP in the new form, then we just revert back to our original form. While in the new form, though, we retain the benefit of any class features from our class, race, or any other source, unlike true polymorph. This means we can also cast our own spells in the new form, while also gaining any innate spellcasting that the new form provides, and any new features the form grants us. The two forms that I would recommend when building a Susanoo are the Balor and the Pit Fiend. The Balor, featured on the left here, is a CR 19 creature, so it wouldn't be available until 19th level. It has a natural AC of 19, 262 hit points, and an 80-foot fly speed. Great ability scores, a ton of resistances, 2 attacks with a longsword with a plus 14 to hit, dealing 3d8 plus 8 slashing damage and 3d8 lightning damage, plus 1 attack with a whip, dealing 2d6 plus 8 slashing and 3d6 fire, that can also pull creatures up to 25 feet toward the Balor. Lastly, it has a teleportation ability of 120 feet. The Pit Fiend, on the other hand, is a CR of 20 and is seen on the right-hand side. So this wouldn't be available until the very end of our D&D campaign. However, it does feature 300 hit points, a fly speed of 60 feet, a ridiculous 26 strength, resistances, fireball at will, hold monster and wall of fire 3 times per day, a 4 attack multi-attack with a bite, claw, mace, and tail, and all of them do solid damage. Neither the Pit Fiend nor the Balor have the Totsuka Blade or the Yatamira, but I think that they make fine Susanoo replacements. And that's my Itachi build. We utilize our Hypnotic pattern to place our enemies under Genjutsu and break out our mental prison, Tsukuyomi, and our shape change, Susanoo, when facing down our toughest enemies. I hope you all enjoyed the build. Let me know in the comments down below if there are any other Naruto characters you'd like to see. I had a request in a previous video for a Madara build, so I may try that out in a future build. My next video will be the top 10 spells for summer. I hope you'll join me then. Thanks. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, and this is D&D Original Character.